I can't believe that the video I did on Baihe novels did good. I thought that because it was a niche inside of a niche, it wouldn't do so well, but you guys surprised me. I was actually reluctant to read Baihe novels at first because when I read manhuas, it really wasn't for me, which is ironic since I translated Chinese manhuas. But a lot of manhwas I read had little drama and the plot was not that interesting. Of course, there are some that I love, like Soulmate and The Wind Spell, for example, but I wanted drama. And Lord, does Baihe novels have drama. I will say that Chinese novels are books that I cannot put down. From fantasy and cultivation to entertainment and crazy fans, if you're new to Baihe novels or you just want to hear me talk about them, here are my 5 favorite Baihes that I recommend to you. Also, disclaimer, I'm gonna be butchering the fuck out of these names. I am so sorry. This first one is hilarious, and honestly, after reading this, it stuck in my head for quite some time. Now, not only is the story amazing, but the translator did an incredible job for this novel. The story I'm talking about is called Outrageous by Hundre. I apologize again. Outrageous is a comedy romance story about this woman, Jiwei, who is very much invisible. No one really looks at her. She is like low-key in NPC. Until one day, the quote-unquote male protagonist halo falls on top of her head. Suddenly, she hears a voice in her head telling her to do missions and follow the script in order to correct the world that they're living in, which includes capturing the female lead's heart. Of course, Jiwei thinks this is ridiculous and kind of refuses to do it since she's a woman, but the system in her head told her that if she doesn't do the male protagonist missions, then she'll get shocked. Being scared of pain, Jiwei does the missions and is now a protagonist in her world, focused on following plot points in order to make the female lead fall in love. But the system and her both notice that something is a bit different with the female lead. The female lead, Wansi, doesn't follow the script of the world at all. So how will Jiwei correct this world without getting shocked? I actually think this was my first Baihe novel, and this was the one that really got me into Baihe. It had a mixture of comedy, romance, and drama. The couple literally is so cute. It's very much fated lovers type of trope. And it'll make you cry a bit. At least I did. You will never really get bored of reading this, and I've reread this novel a couple of times. And aside from the story, this author literally created bangers after bangers. I love all her work. Some of the works that she did are She's the Protagonist, How Do You Still Have This Side, and Didn't Expect That, Did You? If you love a comedic entertainment trope type of story, then I highly suggest you read this one. Now, imagine you're getting ready for an exam. You're studying and getting prepared until you feel a bit tired. So you lay your head down just for a quick nap. And as soon as you open your eyes again, you see that you're not in the same room you were in before. So you explore and walk around. Then suddenly, you find out you have a wife and a kid. This is what happens in the story I Woke Up to Find I Have a Kid by Si Jingchu. I read this back when I was in high school, and I just remember being so in love with the love interest. I literally would squeal to my friends how much I wanted her. In here, we meet our main protagonist, Han Fei-shu, who was studying until she felt tired. When she woke up, she found herself in a new room and saw the idol she was admiring back then in front of her, telling her that she needed to pick up their kid. Feeling confused, she contacted her best friend who showed her that her goddess idol was now her wife and had a kid with her. But the thing is that she and her idol goddess wife were now getting a divorce. I actually love obsessive love stories. Although I don't want one myself, I still eat those stories up. This story is pretty simple, not gonna lie. Han Fei-shu basically has amnesia and tries to remember why they're trying to get a divorce. And a little spoiler alert, her wife actually doesn't want to divorce. So she chases Han Fei-shu while trying to support her decisions, But in the end, she just wants Han Fei-shu back and all to herself. I will say though that Fei-shu does get a little bit on my nerves at some points, but then again, I have to remember that she is mentally 16. It's such a drama-filled novel that I love, especially with having the entertainment industry mixed up in it. But then again, I just love entertainment industry type of novels in general. Now, this next story can be a bit confusing for some people because I will say it was a bit confusing for me at first. Up next, we have The Dragon by Ta Yan-jun. We meet Gu Fuyo, who is the daughter of the legendary Gu Wenpeng, but Fuyo was a mediocre cultivator. So when she got into the Xuan Miao sect, people thought her father pulled some strings in order for her to be there. One day, she had to summon her own spirit beast. People were mocking her, expecting a low-level beast, but when she summoned a beast never showed up. Instead, a human did. And it was not just any human. It was the sect genius Zhong Michu. Before people could even tell her to stop, she had already formed a pact with Michu, making her spirit beast. Now, the reason why I was confused at first is because it's a xianxia. If you don't know what xianxia is, it's a fantasy genre where people will focus on cultivation by meditating and training to become essentially an immortal being. I've seen movies and shows growing up that involve this, but I never really grasped the concept of it since I was young. But once you get into the genre and kind of know how the levels and everything works, it's such an interesting genre. So yeah, this story is a xianxia. But it's also such a riveting story. The author did an amazing job fleshing out the story and characters where I did cry a bit during the story. The romance, however, is quite a slow burn, which, if you know me, is not one of my top tropes. But because the plot was just so good, I just couldn't put this book down. Also, the translator translates so many bangers. I've read all of the stories they've translated except 9 Summers of Divine Punishment, just because it was a bit too much for me. Next, we have a story that I have read multiple times, and I keep saying this, but this one was just too, oh my god, I loved it. Although I love all the baihas I'm recommending, this one just hits too good for my heart. It's called After Being Scummed by Jiang Yishui. In this, we meet our main lead, Yin Bai, who had somewhat of a sugar baby, sugar mommy relationship with her ex, Xiaonian, who was the sugar baby in the relationship. But after finding success, Xiaonian basically left Yin Bai for another woman. Being heartbroken, Yin Bai basically stayed in her home, locking herself away, wallowing in her sadness, until she saw 2 little kids accidentally losing their toy on her property. Coincidentally, one of those kids were her ex's arch nemesis, Jingyou. Things led to one another and they both realized they were in similar positions where their ex left them for another person. Finding comfort in each other, they slowly feel a blooming feeling within each other. Love. When will this happen to me? Sorry. Anyways, I love this book with my whole heart. I will say that even though I love all the baihas I'm recommending to you guys, this one is a close first. I find this novel somewhat relatable, especially when it comes to love and healing from love. I will say that this book really surprised me though with how they handled their problems. Instead of miscommunicating or blowing up, the characters actually handle the problems with maturity and talk it out. A big part that I loved about this one though was the mention of the Little Prince. That book had a huge impact on the story. I don't want to spoil, but when you read it, you'll know. Overall, the story really is such a sweet, heartwarming, and touching novel that I'll continue to reread in the future. And finally, in first place, we have Presumptuous by Xuan Jian. I actually don't want to talk about this one a lot since I am cooking up a video about this story. This is another sugar baby, sugar mommy type of story, where we have the sugar baby Tong, who had just won the Best Actress award. Her fans were basically praising her as well as the media. But the media called her the little Chin Yinong. But Tong's fans were furious because Yinong had a tainted reputation. Although her acting was top-notch, people also knew her because of her promiscuity. But little did everyone know, Tong was actually being sponsored by Yinong and even had a huge crush on her. Guys, you don't know how much I love this novel. When I was done reading it, I literally sent a 30-minute voice message to one of my best friends just explaining the whole plot and how much I love the story. And she used it as a getting ready background noise. But low-key, she's actually questioning whether she should read Yuri or not. I'm converting over here, guys. It's working. Okay, sorry, off track. But this story is my favorite novel. Not only is there top-notch drama, but just like after being Scummed, it shows us that not every relationship is perfect and it has its ups and downs. Each chapter is beautifully written and purposeful. To me, there was no filler or anything like that in this book, and it just kept me hooked. And as you can tell by my reviews on the other stories, I do cry a lot. So with this story, I also cried. Just the relationship and how we see these characters slowly fall in love is just so well written. I literally could talk about this novel for another 30 minutes, just like how I talked about it with my friend. But that's another video, and hopefully that'd be shorter. But that's all for my recommendations. I hope you like it. I have been obsessed with Baihe novels. It's low-key becoming an addiction. Someone please send help, because with this addiction, I don't think I touched a manga in like months, because I've been just downing these novels. Anyways, I hope if you have never read Baihes, this can be your starting point. If you have, send your favorite Baihes down in the comments below. And if you haven't, then tell me which one would you read. And that's all. See you next week.